You know, spaceflight is so challenging, so expensive, and also when you have a team of people that are different, when they come from different countries, different cultures, basically different whatever, they provide skills and insight and solutions to problems that teams that have people that are very much the same do not share.
We fighter pilots almost have to start unlearning certain things and start collaborating more, you know. The cockpit gets bigger. From that one person, you have many more people.
You get a great opportunity to become an explorer, and the capability that, I feel astronautics is probably the only profession in the world which gives you a very, very rare opportunity to work as an equal with multiple other professions in the field of space science.
Choose to do the hard things, not the easy stuff. Anyone can do that. And the hard stuff is where you're going to find satisfaction and fulfillment and make a contribution to humanity.
The entire nation supports this. When somebody tries to accomplish something very audacious,
aspirations of so many people are what you're carrying there. It's like, yeah, a regular routine thing there. But here, whenever you fly, it's like hundreds and thousands of people, their aspirations, their dreams that, yeah, look where India is going with you.
What a dream, what an honor to be here, sharing this stage with you. Excited to moderate a session, and I'm not just saying that because you're all sitting in front of me. What a dream, what an honor to be here, sharing this stage with you. Of course, I'm not an astronaut, I'm not a pilot, and I've been desperately trying to think, do I have anything in common, besides, of course, that we're all human? Do I have anything in common? And of course, with the Gaganauts, I share our nationality. We're all Indian. And Captain Kelly, you've given me something, a little bit of a link, because you applied to be an astronaut in the same year that I was born, in 1996. So you've been doing this for as long as I've been alive. You've been serving humanity for as long as I've been alive. And therefore, it is truly my privilege, my honor, and our entire NXT family's honor to have you with us in India. Thank you so much. I want another round of applause for our astronauts. I must begin this by asking, starting the conversation with Captain Scott Kelly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you've spent a total of 520 days in space, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes.
So, and I often, when people ask me that, I also like to point out, because my twin brother Mark is also an astronaut, but
yes,
he's only spent like 50 days in space.
Oh, okay.
Compared to my 500.
Yes.
It's funnier when he's sitting next to me, but he's not here today.
Yes. So just for a little bit of a briefing and a background, Captain Kelly was a part of a NASA study where he spent a year in space mission, almost spent a year in space, and his twin, who was back at home on Earth, they were studied for any genetic differences and any genetic updates in DNA and the impact of living in space on human beings. So Captain Kelly, thank you so much. Like I said, that's a service to humanity. You really changed the course there with your time spent in space. Given that you have so much experience, and we have our 4 Gaganauts who are also preparing to go into space, I, of course, want to ask you on their behalf, what is the advice that you would firstly like to give them as someone who's been to space for so long? They're preparing for the maiden Gaganyaan mission. What's the one thing being in space has taught you, which no simulator could?
Well, being in space has taught me a lot. A lot about teamwork, a lot about preparation, a lot about, always being prepared and having a backup plan when things go wrong, and a backup plan to the backup plan. And you can never know too little about the systems that you're working with. But like I said in my talk, the best part about this job is that it's a hard thing. And there are many other hard things that you can do. You don't have to fly in space. And I often tell kids, you know, choose to do the hard things, not the easy stuff. Anyone can do that. And the hard stuff is where you're going to find satisfaction and fulfillment and make a contribution to humanity.
So let me, on that note, bring in our Gaganauts as well. I want to begin with Group Captain Nair, if I may. Group Captain Nair, you are all elite pilots as well, fighter pilots. And I want to understand then from your perspective, how does the cockpit of a spacecraft really differ from that of your fighter jets? And what was the most surprising thing that you learned during your time when you were doing the simulations, I believe in Star City in Russia?
Thank you a lot for calling us. And thanks, Scott, for coming here. And I realize the seating, two bald guys and the beautiful guys in between us are sandwiched.
I promise you, we didn't plan it like that. It's a coincidence.
It's the bald and the beautiful, yeah.
This is the perfect hair for space, by the way.
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of people deal with their hair in space, and it doesn't look like it's very much fun. So
their hair is the 0G toy, you know, so they're seeing float. We don't have a 0G toy, so we need to carry something with us. So as far as our own transition out here, like even Scott is saying, all four of us are fighter pilots, and including Scott. And one thing which I can say is that in a fighter cockpit, you're alone. You take most of the decisions alone because per se you're supposed to be like that. The one thing that happens when you start training for a space mission is that we fighter pilots almost have to start unlearning certain things and start collaborating more. You know, the cockpit gets bigger. From that one person, you have many more people. So it's almost unlearning certain things. And the first thing that we did when we went to Moscow and we did our initial training there was that the four of us really bonded as a team. And we realized that most of the things that we had to do and all the training sequences were programmed in such a way that it involved 2-3 people to do that action. You know, it's like a check and a challenge, so that there are many things that are happening. But along with the four of us, we also realized that team doesn't stop there. It also extends to the mission control center and to the entire ground support team and the trainer. So when you're there, it's not a single person taking an action. Vis-a-vis, it'll be an entire team. So this is the broad thing which I learned in the astronaut training and as part being the astronaut core, that we need to do more things collaboratively, whether it's in a cockpit or whether it's transnational, like what you're saying in the future. You know, it's a collaborative Earth effort.
And I'd love to come to that in just a moment, but I want to get Group Captain Krishnan's views on this as well. What was the most surprising thing for you when you were doing the trainings, and something that you found perhaps different, difficult, an adjustment, something that you can share with our audience? Given that none of us have had the privilege of doing this training.
Well, ma'am, like I would like to add to what Papa said. A fighter cockpit, it's like you're preparing, preparation is individual preparations. Like you prepare at home, you think of what you are supposed to do. I'm supposed to do X, Y, Z, and that is what is my job. Whereas the moment it comes to flying a spacecraft like Soyuz or maybe Gaganyaan as well, so the first thing is you're not alone. And it is not just that you and the crew sitting with you. It's a whole team. It's like a team of the crew sitting inside and the crew who's outside. And they are as important as you are. That's what we realize. And the second thing is, most importantly, I realize though in a fighter aircraft, we are worried about who's shooting you and whom you are shooting. Here, that's not the problem at all. Nobody's firing at you. But then, there are a lot of people gunning for you. Yeah, so it's like there are so many eyes on you, and every time you fly a fighter aircraft, it's not like aspirations of so many people are what you're carrying there. It's like, yeah, a regular routine thing there. But here, whenever you fly, it's like hundreds and thousands of people, their aspirations, their dreams that, yeah, look where India is going with you. So that's a big thing. That's what I think.
Group Captain Pratap, same question to you, sir. If I can just understand from your perspective, what was the most surprising part of your training?
Okay, thank you for inviting me to this event. I have not many other, way more different perspectives, but I would like to maybe add to lesser important things than the ones that the other two gentlemen have already covered. One of the biggest things in the transition from a military pilot to that of an astronaut is two things that I would like to highlight. One thing that I feel being a military aviator, any which ways, is the biggest unknown element that you're fighting is your opponent. But here in space, and you're never really fighting the environment as such. But here in space, it's the extremity of the environment and the number of unknowns which are there, which will unfold in the mission as it progresses, which we are really preparing most of our time for. So it's really too much about technology, understanding space science, and applying all the math and physics that you can understand. Of course, you can get a lot of science from the military aviation world and infuse there. And the second thing is that you get a great opportunity to become an explorer, and the capability that, I feel astronautics is probably the only profession in the world which gives you a very, very rare opportunity to work as an equal with multiple other professions in the field of space sciences. Yeah. Thank
Group
you.
Captain Shukla, you've already had the opportunity of being in space. What was the biggest transition for you, or what was the biggest adjustment, something that perhaps your time on Earth had not prepared you for, and you really had to deal with those challenges while you were there?
Thank you for your question. But
My
before,
apologies. Can I just ask everyone in the back to settle down quickly? Yes, go ahead, sir.
Before I start, I would like to mention that Scott was saying that he has spent 500 days and then Mark has spent 50. So I am somewhere, here, like with 20 days. So not a lot of experience. But what was surprising for me initially during the training days is, as a fighter pilot, the traits that are required out of you are very different. You learn to take decisions individually. You have to be really confident in your abilities because you're going to fight someone, borderline arrogant, I would say. But when you get into this training, like what Scott was mentioning, that you really learn to work in a team. Not just the team which is on board, but the extended team which is on the ground. So that is the one very important part of the training. For my mission, I would say from launch till recovery, till splashdown, almost everything was a surprise because there is only training, can prepare you only so much. The actual environment cannot be simulated. So when the liftoff happens, when the ignition happens, it is a delta. It is not the same as you've experienced in training. So that was a surprise. And then when you reach orbit, again, you practice that in the zero gravity flights, but it's not the same. So there is always a delta which is attached to the entire training. And I heard this during our mission, that there is a saying in spaceflight community that you are ready for a space flight when you finish one. So because of all the deltas, when you have done one, then you realize, okay, this is what I need to do. So yes, there were a lot of surprises during this entire mission, but I think it taught me a lot, and bringing back all those experiences with me. Thank you.
All right.
Can I just
Yes,
add to that, to give you a little bit of maybe a better perspective, how unexpected things are, and that is I flew in space a couple of years before my brother Mark did, and during that time I tried to explain to him what the launch on the space shuttle was going to be like. Now keep in mind, he's also a former test pilot, carrier aviator, flew in combat, trained astronaut. And we talked about it a lot. And then when he flew and came back and landed, when the hatch opened, I was standing right there. And the first thing he said to me when he came out of that hatch, he goes, I had absolutely no idea what that launch was going to be like. On the space shuttle, it is just...
And I can actually vouch for this. This is exactly the same feeling I had, because I had an expectation in my mind. But when it actually happens, it is totally different. It is not the same. So there is a lot of delta that you cannot practice for or prepare for while you're on ground for the simulations. It's not possible.
And I'm sure, of course, like I said, most of us sitting here have not had the privilege of either the training or going into space. But I'll come to that just little bit later, how that's opening up for the rest of us as well. But Captain Kelly, your talk right now was all about cooperation and how if the space sector has to move forward, it has to be together. Even though there's a lot of chatter about space wars and who's ahead, we still see that most space missions require an intense level of global cooperation. So our Gaganauts have trained in Russia. You also have a Russian link where I believe you flew to the ISS aboard one of the Russian spacecrafts. Do you believe that today there is then a need to have a world space organization? Is that a concept that should be pursued?
Absolutely. I mean, the United Nations has a space organization that I was a part of at one time. But, you know, spaceflight is so challenging, so expensive. And also, when you have a team of people that are different, when they come from different countries, different cultures, basically different whatever, they provide skills and insight and solutions to problems that teams that have people that are very much the same do not share. When I was in flying fighters in the US Navy, basically it was a bunch of middle-class white guys flying airplanes. And it wasn't until I got to NASA and I saw the value of having people that are different and what that brings to the team is so, so powerful and important that's why I think for those reasons, an international space program is really what's going to be necessary to go to Mars someday, because I don't think any one country is going to be able to bear the cost, and they're probably also not going to have maybe the technical abilities to do it by themselves.
So on that note, Captain Kelly, because progress in space is very critical to the future of humanity as well, a lot of important studies take place in future. It's not simply about just sending people in space to observe the Earth. And of course, you know, you've been there, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. But in that spirit, then I want to understand from you, how important is it for countries to continue cooperating in the space sector even when tensions on Earth are high?
Yeah, well, certainly we see that with the United States and Russia, how we're able to still cooperate despite, you know, significant differences with regards to what's going on in Ukraine. You know, I'm of course not happy that we're in that position, but we are in that position. But I think spaceflight needs to be an environment that we all own, we all participate in, and we do it in a peaceful manner. And I hope it stays that way. We don't really have a good track record of not militarizing things as humans. But I'm hopeful that we won't do it in this case.
All right, and on that note, I also want to come to perhaps the future and what the future of space looks like. Group Captain Nair, coming to you, sir. India, and you know, Captain Kelly was just talking about the exponential costs that are involved as far as space programs go. But India has a very good, clear reputation of managing and conducting very successful, high-stakes space missions at possibly 1/10 the cost of what it may cost anywhere else in the country. One of the key examples is Chandrayaan, which was a very successful mission. It cost less than a Hollywood movie. So I want to understand from you, what's the biggest thing that you've taken away from our frugal innovation mindset? Does that impact your training in any way?
So the short answer is no, it doesn't impact our training. Because, you know, there is a saying that when you've got unlimited resources, you don't require any strategy. You just need to throw the stuff and, you know, eventually you'll win. So here, since our resources are not unlimited, and we have to be very sure what we select, what's the cost that goes into it, what's the kind of technology we put into it, and thereafter whether it's going to be dual use tomorrow from industry point of view, there's more thought that goes into it. So when we work closely with our scientists and with the other programmers and people who are being part, because you know the vessel or Gaganyaan space capsule is being built as we speak with all those tests. It's very interesting to see how all these challenges are being met. So it's only when the resources are limited in time and in cost that you're allowed to do more innovation. So as far as the training is there, we have, we're thankful to the government for sending us to the people who are actually at the forefront of this space journey, that is both the US and Russia. We learn from the best. So we have taken those best practices and we do what we Indians always do best, right? We take it and we make it our own and we add something even better to it. So I think this is the gift that we give back to everybody, that we collaborate with everyone and make sure that the technology we give back to everyone is for everybody. And I would say that's going to be a big moment for us also, that when we use these kind of things and give a separate protocol and we show that we can do it in this different way, it sends out a message to those other people who have not been able to send their human beings to space till now and maybe in the future. And they know that if we maybe piggy bank on India once we have this capability also, it will allow their own countries also to go to space with us and achieve what they want to do. So I think that's what we bring to the table.
That's very beautifully summed up, and I think that's also the core of what Captain Kelly was talking about in his speech. And I think India really does focus on taking the best of innovation, adding our own flair to it, and then making sure that it's available to the world. And that's really the Indian ethos, which we see in our space program. But Group Captain Krishnan, I wanted your thoughts on the same as well. Is there something about, just our sheer ability to achieve what we do in our space mission and do it at the costs that we do. What has that really taught you personally?
Okay, so now that we are talking of being frugal in space, maybe I can take an example from the previous talk, let's say biotechnology, vaccines. India is producing generic medicines, and these generic medicines are now the source of health for the rest of the world because they're so cheap. We have people from across the world coming to India because we sell medicines cheap. We have cheap medicines. The same is with vaccines that we produce. And now, the same thing translates to space, is what I think. By being frugal and cutting down cost, we are showing to the world that probably it is possible for everybody to be able to achieve what countries with deep pockets are able to. So that itself, if we can do it, then probably to smaller countries, it gives them that we just need that endeavor to go ahead and push. Money is not really a big constraint. That's what it goes to show, is what I think.
And I believe truly, Captain Kelly, you were also pointing out that we're going to be, we've reached the moon. There's a lot of talk about inhabiting the moon one day, but there's now suddenly a lot of chatter about Mars as well. So we've not yet landed on the moon, but we're already preparing for Mars. And of course, it's great to have those aspirations, and perhaps India will play a big role in that. But I want to genuinely understand from you, when we talk about our ability to live in space, in your assessment, what's a possible timeline for that? And who do you think will be the key players in achieving that?
Well, that's a very good question. I've flown in space 4 times. My first flight was 8 days. My second was 21, then 154 days, and then 340. And some smart person told me, if you were to graph that, that's a second-order polynomial. And if I was to fly in space a 5th time, it would have to be for 5 years to match that curve. And what I learned is how I felt when I got back was very much matched that line. The longer I spent, the worse my symptoms were. On my last flight, I mean, when I got back, I would stand up and I could feel the blood just rushing out of my head, and my ankles would swell up like balloons, and I lost 25% of my heart mass while I was in space. I had, effects on my DNA, my immune system, my vision has been affected. You won't see my brother wearing glasses. He doesn't need a distance correction like I do because of his 50 days in space. You ever heard of the humble brag? That ain't it. It's the full-on brag. But, so I think going to Mars, whenever we decide to go, long-term goal, absolutely no problem from a physical standpoint. It's 250 days to get there, less than the time I spend in space. When you're on the surface, some of your, these negative physiological effects will be hopefully return closer to normal, and then it'll take you a similar time to get back. So I think we're going to really run into issues when we try to go beyond Mars, and that's not something I think we need to worry about. But if you were to go to like a planet of, or a moon of Jupiter and Saturn someday, and you wanted to, I don't know, maybe go down to the surface and be at all functional, you would have to have some type of zero gravity. Because otherwise we would just, our physiology, I think, would just be really messed up without it.
Okay, and I hope everyone who's talking about that is, listening to you as well, because like I said, chatter is good, ambitions are good, but there's also a very real side to a lot of these promises that are made. But Group Captain Shukla, your thoughts on the same as well. When we talk about settling humanity on moon, your thoughts?
So I think Scott has very well explained the challenges that we are going to face, physiologically and otherwise. And the environment is very difficult. But I think I would like to address the other side of it. The question that you asked probably, 2 questions earlier was that how do we want to do this? So if we want to explore and go on moon, I think that we should not carry the problems that we have on Earth to another terrestrial body that we have, like to the moon. And that is what is going to be a bigger challenge. What would be the kind of society that if you want to land on moon and create? What would be the policies that would govern how people would live on moon? Is it going to be the same way that whoever reaches first will set up a fence and declare that this is what my area is, or this is what my land is? I think that is going to be a bigger challenge, to set up an organizational framework of understanding how is it that we want to do this exploration. Because once you step outside the planet and you look at it from the outside, and let's say you meet someone, which will be scary, but if you happen to come across an alien and you have to introduce yourself, you would be saying that I'm from planet Earth. And so in a sense, you become the citizen of this planet. And so when you go to some other place and you try to set up a colony there, what are the frameworks? What are the ground rules that you're going to set on that place? I think that is going to be equally important as compared to the technical challenges that we have to overcome to be able to go there. So I think we need to start working on them now, because it is happening. People are going back to the moon. So I think these are also very important discussions to be had when we go there.
Absolutely, and that's such an important point that you've raised, that who's going to govern what happens in space. And that's why I had asked Captain Kelly on that question about the World Space Organization, that, as per my research, there are over 70 national and regional space agencies, but there's not one World Space Organization. And that's a concept that we've been pushing for at NXT as well, where space is a key industry that we look at. And why is there no World Space Organization to govern the rules of space?
I got an idea, maybe a name, Starfleet.
That's nice. Okay, done.
Someday.
Yes, okay.
Starfleet. Star Trek.
But Group Captain Pratap, I want your thoughts on the concept of a World Space Organization as well. How critical is that for our future as far as the space industry is concerned? And what would your appeal be then to policymakers, to governments? Because, ultimately governments are also run by human beings. And we let so much of what our problems on Earth are really impact our decisions for humanity for the long term.
Okay, I'll probably talk about this from perspective of the kind of science we do once we reach space. Okay. We as a humanity, as a race, have to realize that most of the science that we have done so far is in the domain of Newtonian mechanics, which we understand that when I throw a stone here, it'll reach there and stuff like that. But there is science beyond the classical science that we understand while living here on planet Earth. Most of the science that we've understood so far is by observing phenomenon here on planet Earth. If we want to understand higher sciences, we have to go beyond planet Earth. For that, there is a very big requirement of course, extending space exploration. But whenever we talk about space, the moment you hear the word space, people are like, oh, that sounded expensive. And that's it. The balloon is burst right there. So one of the things that this space World Space Organization can indeed do is it can collaborate by the collaborative efforts of this multinational body, make space much more affordable in furthering the cause of space sciences. It'll be like a single mall in which you just enter and you buy everything. You don't have to go through long procedures of going through multi-government levels and stuff like that probably. So the best thing that it can do is, one, further the cause of space exploration by way of making it way more affordable. And talking of the frugality thing, that's what India is showing an example of. Yeah.
Yes, and in all sectors, as far as India and frugal innovation is concerned, it's all sectors. I'm being given a very stern eye by my colleagues to wrap up as we have to move forward. But I've asked for 5 minutes because I have to ask one last very quick questions. I'm going to leave the last word with all of you, but I want to start with the Gaganauts quickly. Group Captain Nair, and the same question to everyone. You're going to be carrying the aspirations of 1.4 billion Indians, of course, with the rest of the world as well, but particularly of the 1.4 billion Indians. When Gaganyaan does launch and takes off, what's your hope from this historic milestone that we will soon achieve? And I'm saying that today here from this platform, that we will achieve it.
So I think what India brings to the table, and like what Scott said, and he didn't butcher the name too much, Aryabhata, that we were always there in space since long time back, and we just took a break so that US could catch up. So now we're going to be coming back there and, we're going to take over. And I think that, we right now, I think what the world slightly lacks, whether it's geopolitics or anything, is that everybody's technically brilliant at the tactical level, but some strategic incoherence is missing. And I would say, being a Vishwaguru, being, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, what we bring, that consciousness fact, which even Kartikeya ji was talking yesterday, like, why AI can never be conscious and we'll always be the human element. I think India symbolizes that, we bring that element. And, when COVID was there also, we gave vaccines before we ourselves had it. That sends a big message, The same way here also, when we go to space, we'll say that even before we get it, we'll give it to the rest of the world. And once we reach to space, we'll hold the fort for the rest of the people. When the new space laws are being written, we're going to be there for you guys. That's what
Absolutely. That's beautifully summed up. But Group Captain Krishnan, quickly, 30 seconds, your hopes.
Yes, you said that we would carry the aspirations of 1.4 billion. I hope it also inspires the 1.4 billion to do the hard stuff, to put boots on ground and do what is right, not just in space, everywhere.
Group Captain Pratap, same question to you, sir.
Yeah, ma'am, I would like to just resonate along the lines of what Groupie Krishnan said. Once this thing is going to happen, it's going to be a very big thing. Let's all of us understand this. The capability to send a human being to space is going to be a monumental achievement. We are going to be the fourth country to achieve it. Nevertheless, it's going to be something big. There are countries more advanced than us, more developed than us, who failed that while doing. So walking that path itself is something which talks about the kind of courage and national bravery that we are trying to exhibit. And in the process, every Indian on the road is going to be feeling so much more confident about himself and his capabilities. The kind of thing it'll bring down to that one teacher also who's teaching that student in the classroom. I mean, that what is the capability of that average Indian? You can understand maybe, yeah.
Absolutely. Group Captain Shukla, on this question, I'll leave the last word to you, and then I just have a quick question from Captain Kelly as well.
Yeah, I don't think that it is a hypothetical question. It has actually kind of partly already happened. You guys covered the mission that we flew, and I did not expect it, but ever since I came back and I landed in India after this mission, so you get a number when you go to space. So I was number 634. I'm sure Scott would be much higher up the chain. When you first time cross and you get the number. And if you are 634 on any list, it is not significant. What's the big deal about it? There are so many people who have gone. But the kind of support and love and enthusiasm that I have been witnessing after I have come back to India, it has been unprecedented. And this is when we flew from US soil. Now just imagine what would happen when it is going to happen from your own soil, in your own rocket, in your own capsule. I think that the entire nation supports this. When somebody tries to accomplish something very audacious, the entire country comes together to support it. And like what Angad sir was mentioning, each and every person feels proud. I've given a lot of selfies after I've come back to India, ever since I have returned. But I haven't felt tired at all. Because whenever I go out for a selfie, I don't just see that people want to click a picture. They want to be a part of this mission through that picture. So I think that this is the uniqueness that we bring, that we Indians, we love to celebrate together when we are able to do something, extremely complex and extremely difficult task, which is what is going to happen when we finally fly on Gaganyaan mission. And I hope that it happens very soon for us. Thank you.
Absolutely, and that's also an answer for literally everyone I know. All my colleagues have come up to me and said, we would like a picture with everyone. So you've answered. There's your answer. You may approach with their permission after this session. But Captain Kelly, there are people watching us virtually. There are young people in the audience as well. If someone wants to join the space sector, wants to become an astronaut, what's the best way forward?
Yeah, so what I tell kids often is, you got to find the thing that inspires you, work hard at it, never ever give up, and to follow on what these guys were saying. The whole idea of you can see it, you can be it, and when people see Indian astronauts flying into space, it'll inspire them. And all of them are not going to fly in space today, but they're going to do some incredible things that are important to society. So I am really excited about India's future in space, and I look forward to, maybe I'll get an invitation to the launch someday.
No,
Just throw that out there.
100%. We will try to make that happen as well. And thank you so much once again to everyone for joining us and gracing our stage with your presence. It's been an incredible, incredible honor.